According to National Electrical Code Section 250.66a, if a grounding electrode conductor is the sole connection to the grounding electrode system, it is not required to be larger than number 6 copper or number 4 aluminum. Therefore, for a 400 amp 4 meter service with only a grounding electrode conductor and 2 ground rods attached to the meter, a number 6 copper grounding electrode conductor would be sufficient. Section 250.66d requires that the grounding electrode conductor for a single meter service be at least the same size as the largest service entrance conductor. For a 400 amp single meter service, the largest service entrance conductor would be 400 amps. According to Table 250.66, the required size for a 400 amp grounding electrode conductor is number 2 copper or number 1/0 aluminum. Therefore, for a 400 amp single meter service, a number 2 copper grounding electrode conductor would be required. Let's delve a bit deeper into the intricacies of grounding electrode conductor sizing, specifically addressing the scenarios of a 400 amp 4 meter service and a 400 amp single meter service. Grounding electrode conductors play a critical role in ensuring electrical safety by providing a low impedance path for fault current to return to the source, facilitating the operation of overcurrent protective devices and minimizing the risk of electric shock. Now, considering the first scenario of a 400 amp 4 meter service, where the grounding electrode conductor serves as the sole connection to the grounding electrode system such as ground rods, we refer to National Electrical Code Section 250.66a. This section provides a specific exception stating that if the grounding electrode conductor is the only connection to the grounding electrode system, it does not need to exceed number 6 copper or number 4 aluminum. This exception recognizes that in certain situations, the grounding electrode system's primary function is to provide a reference point for voltage stabilization and to dissipate static charges, rather than to carry significant fault current. Therefore, for a 400 amp 4 meter service with only a grounding electrode conductor and 2 ground rods attached to the meter, a number 6 copper grounding electrode conductor would be deemed adequate. On the other hand, when dealing with a 400 amp single meter service, the requirements for the grounding electrode conductor are somewhat different. Section 250.66d dictates that the grounding electrode conductor for a single meter service must be at least the same size as the largest service entrance conductor. This requirement acknowledges that in a single meter service, the grounding electrode conductor may be called upon to carry a substantial amount of fault current in the event of a ground fault. To determine the appropriate size for the grounding electrode conductor in this scenario, we consult Table 250.66, which provides guidance on grounding electrode conductor sizing based on the size of the service entrance conductors. For a 400 amp single meter service, where the service entrance conductors are sized to carry 400 amps, Table 250.66 indicates that the required grounding electrode conductor size is number 2 copper or number 1/0 aluminum. Consequently, for a 400 amp single meter service with the same grounding situation as the 4 meter service, a number 2 copper grounding electrode conductor would be necessary. It is important to emphasize that these sizing requirements are based on the National Electrical Code and are intended to ensure the safety and reliability of electrical installations. Adhering to these guidelines helps to minimize the risk of electrical shock, fire, and other hazards associated with faulty grounding systems. In summary, for a 400 amp 4 meter service with only a grounding electrode conductor and 2 ground rods attached to the meter, a number 6 copper grounding electrode conductor would suffice. However, for a 400 amp single meter service with the same grounding arrangement, a number 2 copper grounding electrode conductor would be mandated. These distinctions in sizing requirements reflect the different roles and potential fault current carrying capacities of grounding electrode conductors in various service configurations. Always refer to the latest edition of the National Electrical Code and consult with a qualified electrical professional to ensure compliance with all applicable codes and regulations.